What's up, friends? It's Haley, aka Bird,
and Randy.
and you're tuning in to the Give 'em the Bird podcast.
This podcast is all about challenging what it means to be healthy and fit. It's about celebrating sustainable behavior change and non-scale victories.
And most importantly, it's about giving the bird to the diet industry and societal expectations of body size. Why? Well, because at the end of the day, you have an entire life to live that does not require your body look a certain way.
Thanks for tuning in.
Now, let's give 'em the bird. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Give 'em the Bird podcast. On today's episode, Randy and I are talking about a doozy of a topic: pregnancy and body image, because yo girl, Birdie Bird, is rocking a baby belly, a baby belly. So yeah, this has been a very interesting time, and I think it's worth talking about because body image is highly impacted by bodies changing, which happen during pregnancy. And I know, Randy, you have two babes, and it's been a bit since you had one of them in your belly. But I don't know, when you were thinking back to like your body image during pregnancy, what was it like for you? What do you remember?
Yeah, it has been a while. But I remember the first time that I saw numbers on the scale that I had never seen before. And it was just a strange feeling. Like I remember, I knew that weight gain was good. I was supposed to gain weight, obviously, but I remember, especially with my first pregnancy, still trying to like make sure that I was eating, super healthy and not overeating and not, eating for two, not overindulging because I was pregnant. And so, I'm that probably kind of robbed me of some, freedom in my pregnancy to just enjoy things. I was still thinking of how what I was eating was affecting my body, and not just, how it was affecting the growth and health of the baby, but I was thinking about how it was affecting my actual body too. So, I definitely remember that. And then of course, just that awkward stage when you've gained weight, but you don't have a true baby belly, that people would describe as a baby belly. And so you just feel gross. Nobody knows you're pregnant. If people saw you, they still wouldn't know you're pregnant. They would just look like you gained a few pounds. And it's just, you don't feel great. You want people to know so that they know that you haven't just gained a few pounds, because that, you're not supposed to gain weight. But
Right.
yeah, just a weird time.
Totally. Yeah, I feel like I'm officially in the second trimester, but I feel like, and I keep describing it to people when they ask, like, do you have a baby bump? I'm like, no, I don't think so. And I keep catching myself saying like, but I also don't have like a super small body. Like I keep like almost, and I don't know if that's like an okay thing or not okay thing to say, but I'm like, I don't feel like a baby belly would show on me quite as quickly as it would as somebody that didn't have as much fat on their body, which I think makes sense, but it's almost like I'm trying to, I don't know. It is such a weird thing, and I feel like I'm totally in that phase where at least people now know that I'm pregnant. But again, if you see me, like I catch myself when I'm like at Target, or I was at Hobby Lobby the other day, like almost like holding my belly as if, like a baby, so that people know like there's a baby in there. And then it's like catching myself
Yeah.
being like, but your body could look this way and there not be a baby in there, and that would be okay,
Right.
and yeah, so I'm totally in that stage right now, and it's a weird thing, and luckily I have my therapist to help me work through it. But what you mentioned of like the recommendations around like not eating for two and all of that, oh my gosh, the first nurse practitioner that I saw, I'm no longer going to her because I don't know, I just felt like no awareness of like body image and pregnancy. And I felt like there
Mm-hmm.
were certain things that she almost like skipped over in telling me because like I live in a, more of like a straight sized body. And I'm like, I wonder how your recommendations would have changed if I lived in a larger body. Like, would you have spent more time talking about nutrition, or would you have spent more time talking about physical activity? But I don't know, like that hyper awareness that I have towards how would you have treated me if I was in a larger body. Um, I just like didn't jive with her. But yeah, those recommendations of not eating for two, and it's like flooding my Instagram now and my Pinterest because I've been
Yeah.
searching baby stuff, and it's really hard because I also just want grains. I just want carbohydrates. I want anything beige or dairy. Like that's what I want.
100%.
Yeah. So yeah, I definitely feel I can agree with you that like the first trimester and even like into where I'm at now, the second trimester has been really, really tough in that my body is changing, which is stirring up a lot of shit. Um, and it's not changing to where I feel like I look pregnant. You know what I mean? Like I don't
Right.
quote unquote
You
look
don't feel like
pregnant.
it's justified. Yeah.
Yes. And I think that that's exacerbated by like these things that I've seen online of how to have a bump only pregnancy or like a baby only pregnancy. Yeah, maybe that's what it is, a baby only. Like, oh, she's all baby. I don't know, was
Hmm.
that do you remember hearing that messaging when you were pregnant?
Oh, absolutely. I feel like that has been a thing always. Like that's what you're supposed to strive for. Like if you see you from behind, you wouldn't ever know you're pregnant. And it's like that's just so unrealistic, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Like and and to put the pressure on women to try to achieve that when I mean, I don't know for sure. I don't know if there's been any data on this, but I would guess that it's not related to diet and exercise during pregnancy. It's probably genetic and just how your body is built, and that's how it's going to be for certain people.
Right.
And so to put that pressure on women who are already struggling probably with several other things to try to have this look during pregnancy is just crazy.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I also think too, because one of the difficult things that I've been reminding myself of is so I talk about her all the time. My older sister Leslie, we are so much alike. For a long time, we had very similar body types. They're different now. Even before I got pregnant, they were different. But I remember with both her pregnancies, like everybody always told me, like, oh, she's all bump, like she's just all or not all bump, all baby. She's all baby, like she hasn't gained any other weight except for, the baby or whatever. And so I naturally just catch myself comparing my body now to what like hers looked like at this point. And then I literally catch myself Googling like 16 weeks pregnant when you're a size 8'10". Like, what the fuck? As if like
What am I supposed to look like? Yeah.
yes, it's
Yeah.
totally like, and
I
again,
know.
it's like that societal expectation of like what I'm supposed to look like at this point because I feel like I'm putting on fat in other areas and I'm not just all baby, you know? Um, and then you see that messaging online and it is like, holy shit. There is very few positive messages about women's bodies during pregnancy. Like it
Hmm.
is bananas how every single advertisement or everything that I see posted is about, having a bump or a baby only pregnancy or baby only bump or how to ensure that you get your pre-baby body back. I'm like, bitch, I just entered the second trimester. I can't even think about like post-baby yet. Like it's, you
Right.
know?
Right. Well, and I don't think it's not just, messaging from social media and, entertainment things, but like, people in your lives will say, "Are you sure there's not two in there?" Or, "Did you did you gain weight in your butt? Because if you did, it's a boy." And it's just like it's people are free to comment on your body because you have a baby. That's just like a
Mm.
whole nother layer, I think, that you don't really expect initially, but if you're not prepared for that, that can be really jarring too to have people suddenly just freely commenting on your body.
I had not even thought about that because maybe because I haven't like gotten to that point yet. But yeah, the being pregnant almost gives them it's like it gives them permission to say whatever they want about you. Just like it gives them permission to like touch
Yep.
your belly all of a sudden. It's like, please ask
Right.
before you do that. That's really awkward. I had never
Yes.
even thought about that. So was that something that you remember experiencing with your pregnancies? Like, would people literally come up to you and say that stuff?
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely. Um, well, I was working as a pharmacist both times that I was pregnant, and I would see patients daily, and a lot of them I would see repetitively. So I had, a good relationship with them. Um, but yeah, like due any day now, when I still had 3 months to go, are you sure there's not two in there? And just that kind of stuff. And I was never super insecure with my body when I was pregnant, so it didn't really bother me. It, got a little annoying, but if I had been insecure about things, like that would have been really hard to deal with,
Hmm.
especially it was happening on a daily basis there towards the end. So,
Wow.
yeah, I just think people just don't understand that,
Hmm.
unfortunately.
They don't
But
think about it.
um
In general, like even when
right.
people aren't pregnant, they don't think about saying. I remember one time I went home and I was wearing like my big winter coat. This was I think last year, and my grandma was like, "Oh, you've gained some weight." I was like, "Thanks, Nani." Like, So I think there's also just like sometimes there's people, and maybe it's a generational thing where they just don't even think twice about commenting on bodies, but especially like a pregnant body, it's like that's it's out there, you can see it, so you can comment on it. And I think that I can imagine those comments and just I know for me like seeing the advertisements online and even like the pamphlet that they gave me at my appointments, which I get is it's meant to be helpful and everything. It had me thinking so much about like the fact that I wasn't really exercising a whole lot in the first trimester. I shouldn't say I wasn't exercising a whole lot. I wasn't really lifting a whole lot. I was training for the half marathon, which I mean, incredible feat. Really proud of myself for doing that. But and it felt good
Absolutely.
to continue running when I was like I think it helped a lot with my nausea and things like that. But I just remember feeling kind of just like a piece of shit because it's like, meal plans for pregnancy, eat your salmon. And I'm like, the thought of salmon right now, Sharon, makes me literally want to like puke up a goddamn lung. Like, I still cannot eat
Seriously.
salmon. Yeah. And so I think it leads to it, like personally for me, and even being in the space of quote unquote knowing better. And I talked to my therapist about this, it still led to these feelings of like, I need to exercise. I need to watch what I eat. But at the same time, I'm fucking exhausted. When I move my body, I'm afraid I might puke. Like, and so it's just this conundrum. And I think that that causes even more stress for people. And yeah, it's just like the commenting and all of these things just make people or make women or folks who are pregnant just fear what their body is going to look like. And I think that leads to this like get your pre-baby body back messaging because a lot of it's like if you stay active during your pregnancy or if you only gain so much weight or if you eat, these perfect meals, it'll be easier to bounce back. And it's like why is the messaging for that so loud, but the messaging for taking a nap, like I never fucking once saw an advertisement about like lay
Right.
your pregnant ass down and take a nap. And like that's what we really fucking
Yeah.
need. you know?
Seriously. I
Mm-hmm.
think I think women are praised, and this is outside of pregnancy, this is just in general, women are praised for doing it all. Like, how do you do it? And just keeping up and not resting, this like hustle mentality. And yeah, that exists during pregnancy also. And it's like, the women who are chasing toddlers around and not resting when they're pregnant they're glorified because they're just
Mm-hmm.
pushing through.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think that's damaging messaging for sure. But then one thing I always think about when I hear like getting back to pre-pregnancy size, it's like I'm not a pre-pregnant person. I am a
Yes.
post-pregnant person. I no longer have a pre-pregnant body. Like that's not a thing,
Whoa. Okay.
you know?
Mic drop. That is like I had not thought about that before. Like I'm no longer pre-pregnant. Like I've been fucking pregnant. I can't go back. There's no going
Yeah.
back.
There's no turning this train around. It's happened.
There's no way I can undo what this pregnancy has done, believe me. Yeah.
Right.
I had
Right.
never thought about that before. And that can even be said for like especially with pregnancy when that literally is like the most traumatic incredible thing that a female's body does, or that a person who can get pregnant, that their body does. But like, even that can be the same for, when you think about going from being a college student to not, like, I will never have like my pre-college body because I'm never going to be in college again. Like, think about, I've never thought
Right.
about it in that literal sense before.
Yeah, and you shouldn't have that. You shouldn't have a pre-baby body. Your body has changed for a very good reason. And yeah, you shouldn't go back to that.
Yeah. And I know that one thing that kind of makes me cringe, but at the same time it doesn't, because I have to like find the middle ground with it, is I think women who start exercising shortly after giving birth are also very much praised, or like, not only because, not only are they praised for their bodies snapping back, whether they're exercising or not, but also they are praised for engaging in these healthy behaviors to quote unquote get their body back. But the ability to come back to exercise post baby is so freaking variable. Like, I know there's that, like, isn't it like a 6 week recommendation or something like that? Like, wait 6 weeks or
Right.
whatever.
For most people, yeah.
Yeah, but like, it's so dependent upon, every birth is fucking different, And I think the fact that these like women are often praised for getting back into exercise, often early and quickly, and sometimes doing these like high intense workouts, because again, it's like this idea of what's going to lead to the most fat loss, like, doing all these fucking burpees and shit. And I can imagine, again, I've never been somebody post baby, but I can imagine if I was someone who was like, that sounds awful. I don't have the energy for that. My doctor hasn't cleared me for that yet. I would feel like fucking shit. Like, I would just feel like such crap to see that people who are able to get right back to it are praised for it, but there's no like support or praise for the women who are like, I'm gonna hang tight. I'm gonna wait another couple weeks and see how I feel. I don't know if that makes sense at all.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Um, and I think, I after my second, I had an emergency C-section, and I feel like it was like 6 weeks to the day. I was like, okay, I can exercise now. And I remember doing a workout in my living room, and it's just so ridiculous to me now because I should have been resting so much longer than that
Mm-hmm.
after what my body went through, but I was just so eager at the time to get this pre-baby body back.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think the other thing that, plays into it too is just because your body's changed, what you can do for exercise and what exercise feels like for you is so much different.
Mm-hmm.
And that can be scary. And, I remember trying to do a sit-up after pregnancy, and it's like I literally have no abs anymore. Like, not, obviously you couldn't see them, but like also I felt like there was nothing there. Like my core strength was just gone. And
Mm-hmm.
so I felt a little defeated too. And so that makes it difficult to get back into exercise when you're feeling defeated,
Mm-hmm.
on top of all the other things. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and that's such a good point too. Like, really, anytime we have to take any sort of like extended break from exercise, if we come back to it and we can't perform the way that we expect, quote unquote, expect ourselves to, or that we think that we should be able to based on where we left off, it feels defeating. But I can imagine, like, you are very far back from what you could do before pre-baby, like before the baby, right? Like, not only is it 9 months back, but there was a human that was grown in this vessel. Like, that is, it's just still so mind-blowing to
Right.
me. But that's something that I've even been experiencing with pregnancy, because I took like probably a decent like 3 months off from going to the gym that we go to, Versa. Um, just because, I mean, pregnancy, yes, but I was also training for the half marathon. And so I did that. And then I was like, oh man, for one, I took a prescribed 2 week break. He was like, don't do anything for 2 weeks. And then after the 2 weeks, I was like, yeah, I think I'm going to take another break, like another week break. I don't feel like coming back yet. So it just kind of lengthened out from there. But I went back maybe 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago now. And holy shit, I went into it and I told myself, like, I had several non-negotiables. For one, just showing up was a success. Things like I was going to warm my body up because it needed that, like before being asked to move like rigorously. And then another huge one was modifying and being okay with that and like reframing those negative thoughts. Cause I remember we were doing wall balls and I used to be able to like rep out 20 wall balls, no problem. And I got to like 10 and I was like, my quads are cramping up. Like, and at first I noticed I caught myself being like, oh my God, you've only done 10. You've done half of what you normally did. And I think I might have been using a lighter med ball, but regardless, I was like, what the fuck? And I had to stop and then I felt like some cramping. It ended up just being that like my hip flexor was really tight. But I noticed that even like during pregnancy that my body has already changed in these short 3 months that I have been pregnant and my performance level has changed. And so I can only imagine what that reframing is going to have to look like post baby because there's going to be a lot of reframing I'm going to have to make and that, women have to make when they come back from a baby.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, I'd be interested to know like what you have done so far in pregnancy just to improve your body image or kind of cope with what you've been experiencing. Are there
Mm.
any like action steps you've taken or things that you've done to alleviate some of those feelings you've had?
Yeah, I think the awareness, like noticing it, I always say is we can't make any changes or improve anything if we don't know what we're doing. So I think just the awareness piece of noticing when I am catching myself like body checking or catching myself thinking negatively about the fact that like those pants no longer button up or whatever it might be, or that my
Mhm.
performance is different, or that the foods like salmon that used to taste really good and I ate because they're great for, health and mental well-being and whatever no longer sound good. Like noticing when that like inner critic comes up, or that inner mean girl, or that eating disorder voice, whatever we want to call it, catching that. And then I still feel really strongly about being able to reframe it and like talking back to it, I think has been really helpful. And I think it's easier when it's like, it's so much easier. And I was just talking to my therapist about this the other day. It's so much easier to reframe it when it's like, I'm doing this for a baby, And I think it's really important to know that your body can change and it deserves to change. And it is okay to change regardless of if you're growing a child or not. And that being able to talk back to those negative thoughts are really important. But I find for myself, it's a whole lot easier for me to be like, well, my pants don't fit and that is okay because I'm growing a human. Like, fuck. Like,
Right.
it's so
Right.
much easier to talk back to that inner critic. But I think being able to notice it, challenge it a little bit, or at least like shut it down is something that's really important. And then I think another thing that I've really been trying to do is wear comfortable clothing. Like, and again, this is another
Yes.
thing. I think really a lot of these things are very similar to just like body image in general, right? Like dress yourself comfortably. And I know in GTB Academy, this first round that we wrapped up, what was it, like a month ago? That's crazy. It's already been like a month.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
By the time this episode comes out, it'll be several months. But I remember one thing that came up a lot was body checking, and our solution to it was get ready with your back towards the mirror. Like feel your body in your clothes, decide if you're comfortable physically first, and then look at yourself if you want to look at yourself. And I've been doing that because I actually sold my full length mirror on Facebook Marketplace before getting a new one, which I do this shit all the fucking time. And so I haven't even been able to see my full body in a mirror until like last weekend when I got a new one. But I think that's another thing, like wearing comfortable clothing and just recognizing like it is such a form of body respect. And not only are you like respecting and honoring this body that you're in, but I think it's also like for folks who are pregnant, it's a way of like respecting and honoring your child that you're growing because they are the reason that your body is changing. And I think it's just like being kind and respectful for that to them in a sense too. So I think those are like two big things that pop out in my mind. I don't know. Do you have any thoughts about either of those or other things you would add?
Yeah, I remember when we learned about, awareness and reframing in one of the first weeks of GTB Academy, that was a huge light bulb moment for me because I'd never really, you called it, silencing your inner mean girl.
Yes.
And I never really thought about like actively redirecting myself. I don't know why. It's such a simple concept, but it wasn't anything I'd actually ever done. And so, I put that into practice. And it's so helpful. And also just to go into something with realistic expectations. Like you said, going to
Mhm.
the gym, like I know that things are going to be different. And you still found yourself, kind of thinking like, why can't I do this? But you did that reframing. So, knowing that you're going to have slips or you're going to have times where you still put pressure on yourself, but just yeah, setting expectations that are more
Mhm.
realistic, I think is good. But yeah, I remember when I was pregnant with both my kids, I and it was a different time and the styles were different too, of course, but it's not like it was like super,
We
it was a different time. It was back in the
back in the
day.
early 80s. No.
Oh my God.
But still, yeah, I
Um,
get it.
but but I always had like a form-fitting tight shirt on to accentuate the belly because I thought that if I wore something baggy and comfortable, then I looked fat and I didn't look pregnant. Nobody would be able to tell that I was pregnant. Um, Now if I was pregnant, I would be in friggin' sweatpants and like an oversized shirt like I'm wearing right now, like all
Mhm.
friggin' day. Yeah.
Yes.
You
Yes.
know, I no one would know I was pregnant because you would not be able to tell that I had a belly under
Yeah.
these shirts. Like that's
Mhm.
how I would live. Um, and so yeah, I think being comfortable is key. And I think there's also this stigma or like thought that you can't, buy or start wearing maternity clothes until like a certain point
Yes.
in your pregnancy. And so, women will walk around with like bulging out of their jeans and so uncomfortable because, well, I'm only so many weeks. I can't buy maternity pants. It's like, friggin' buy maternity pants and wear them before you're pregnant if you want. If they're
Yeah.
comfortable, wear them
Yes.
whatever the hell you want to. So
Mhm.
I think that's something too.
That is a really good point. I remember one of my friends we're literally 3 days apart for our pregnancies, and it's like the most magical thing ever. And we were on a trip together, and she shared with me that like I think we were both only like 6 weeks pregnant, maybe. And she shared with me that, like, oh yeah, I'm already in my maternity pants. And it was just like, which it is, it's not her first baby. But I remember thinking like, ooh, like I don't know if I'm ready for that yet. But you're so right. It's like, fuck it. If it is comfortable and then you figure out what works for you and what doesn't before you literally have no choice but like to upgrade, your options.
Right.
So yeah, I
Right.
like that. And I think definitely time of the year makes a difference for this because with it being winter, I am just living for the baggy everything, right? But if it was summer, I can see that would be
Absolutely.
like summertime would be a little bit more difficult. So yeah, I think the comfortable clothing and like the reframing is really big. Another thing that comes to mind for me is just and again this is for everybody wherever no matter where they're at but like focusing on health promoting behaviors and I love that like using this term rather than, you know, I don't know, talking about diet or exercise or food or fitness because health promoting behaviors, I think a lot of times we think about getting active or, eating lots of fruits and vegetables, but in this point of my life, a health promoting behavior was taking a fucking nap. Like that was a health promoting
Yes.
behavior for me or like ironically not going on a walk with my husband and our dogs like that in some cases and just like sitting and being that was a health promoting behavior or not not working through my lunch break that's always a health promoting behavior but like even more so getting up and going for a walk over my lunch break because my hips were really tight like that's a health promoting behavior and it doesn't have to be these really drastic behaviors or even like the at the same level as what we were before we were pregnant health promoting behavior can also be something as easy as going for a walk even if your health promoting behavior before getting pregnant was going to the gym and working out really hard so I think like reframing it as what is going to promote health in my life right now, I think can be really helpful. And then again, expanding it beyond just food and fitness. Think about sleep. Think about social well-being. Think about setting boundaries. Think about fucking napping. Think about stress management, like
Absolutely.
spirituality, feeling connected to like baby, which is a whole nother topic because I'm like waiting for that like maternal connection to happen. And I think it will eventually. I have no doubt that it will, but it's not quite there yet. Um, but so I really like just the idea of health promoting behaviors, expanding what counts as health, because for you in this moment, it's totally going to be different than what you need in third trimester versus what you need in first trimester versus what you was health promoting 6 months ago when you weren't fucking pregnant, you know? So I think that's another thing to really keep in mind, when it comes to body image, because all of those things, it's like a way of showing your body respect by taking care of you. And when we focus on like what's going to feel good for me in this moment, how can I take care of myself in a way that feels good? That may not be exercising intensely, or that may not be eating fucking salmon. Ugh, and so I think that in and of itself is a form of body respect, which is really important when we talk about, improving our body image.
Yeah, 100%. And I think it kind of goes back to, this expectation that women just do it all and kind of power through, and like pushing back on that, like if health promoting behavior for you, like you said, is not meeting up with friends after work, because you just don't feel like it, you're tired, do that, because
Mm-hmm.
the doing it all is not realistic. There's no I remember my OB saying this to me about a certain aspect of my pregnancy. She's like, it's not a competition, you don't get a trophy at the end, like it doesn't matter how you do it, there's no competition, so just do what's going to work for you.
That is a
So
magical reminder.
yeah. Yeah, I think at the time we were talking about like natural labor versus epidural and all
Yes.
that, and that could be a whole nother topic probably. But I was weighing my options, and she's like, listen, like it's not a competition. Like there's
Mm-hmm.
no award. You don't get a medal if you have a natural birth. Like do what's going to be best for you. So I think you
Mm-hmm.
can definitely apply that to all aspects.
Totally.
Um and like having my photographer hat on, I would say, doing something that makes you feel good in your body,
Yes.
something like maternity photos, would be, I think photos of yourself in general are just such an empowering thing, and we're going to talk about that in a different episode too. But
Mm-hmm.
specifically maternity photos, I think can really just give you a sense of like, wow, like my body is doing something incredible and it's beautiful, and it's just a way to make you feel good in your skin.
Mm-hmm.
My sister was also a photographer for a short time, and she did some maternity photos for me that were, they were private photos. They were naked photos.
Oh,
I'm not
yes,
afraid to
mommy.
admit that.
Oh.
um, but it was just fun. It just made me feel really good. At a time where I was, it was towards the end of my pregnancy, so I was a lot bigger and I was just feeling kind of bleh.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of turned things around for me a little bit. So
Yeah.
definitely considering something like that,
Mm-hmm.
just to kind of give you a little pep in your step.
Yes, I like that. I will totally get naked for you, Randy. Um, so just keep
Please
that in mind.
do. Please do.
I mean, you already got me topless. She already got me topless, folks, in one photo shoot. It
Woo!
was so fun. Yeah. And I think what that reminds me of too is that I think a lot of people, and I've heard this is like really positive messaging about bodies changing during pregnancy, is I think for a lot of people, it can bring about this like new sense of appreciation for what our bodies can frickin' do. And I think for some people it can be like a way like getting pregnant. And I would not recommend this as like if you have shitty body image, go get knocked up. Absolutely not. That's not what I'm recommending. But I think for a lot of people, getting pregnant, it like improves their body image in that it just allows them to appreciate their body in such a different way. Like, holy shit, my body is creating this little child that maybe I've wanted for all of my life, or maybe I just decided last month I wanted, like whatever it is. But I think that for a lot of people, it can be such a source of body appreciation. And if you feel that, if you notice that, like lean the fuck into it. You know, anytime that you've, and this kind of goes back to the reframing, but I know for myself, anytime that I start feeling shitty about my body, I'm like, however, my body is literally having to make these changes so I can grow a human. And that's, again, it's still just so, this is like the third time I've said it, so fucking mind blowing. But I think using that as a reframe too, and then just being able to lean into that appreciation. And I can imagine for folks who have maybe, you know, struggled to get pregnant, I wasn't somebody that can relate to that at all, but I can imagine that that sense of appreciation, like my body did this thing, like it's happening, it's probably so strong too. So if you notice the body appreciation, lean into it and like love on that shit. Feel it all.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm with you in the like it's just so mind-blowing. I'm still not convinced like I actually grew my children inside me.
I,
And
I
they're 8 and
didn't
5.
I didn't
But
see it come out of my
apparently it
vagina, so
happened.
how do I know? If I didn't watch it come out, like, that's so funny. Yeah.
Oh, it's
Yeah,
crazy.
well,
Crazy thing.
it is, yeah. I think that even just talking through this, I know in our previous episode, our like intro to season 3, you mentioned how this was going to be like therapy for you. I want to thank you, Dr. Randy, for being my therapist during this session because talking through it, and I think having the conversations with someone who I know is like susceptible to body image, you know, struggles, but is like on the other side, it feels really good because I tend to, the people that are closest to me maybe don't struggle so much with it, and so it's hard to like find that relatability a little bit. So thank you
For
for
sure.
holding space for me and being my therapist. It's my second therapy session of the day. This is great.
Always. Always.
Thank you everyone for joining in to another episode of GTB. If you are a pregnant mama or pregnant person, we're sending our love to you. Remember some of those key things in helping you improve your body image to become aware of when that negative self-talk, that negative Nancy, that inner mean girl pops up. Try reframing it. Dress yourself in a way that is comfortable. Focus on those health promoting behaviors and what feels good to you right now. Consider hitting up Randy for some sexy maternity photos. Yes, and lean into those moments of body appreciation. We would love to hear your thoughts on this episode, especially for those of you who have had baby or are in the process of getting ready to pop baby out. We love you all so much. We're sending you lots of love, and we will see you next week on another episode.